folks, welcome to Fabric of Folklore. I am your hostess, Vanessa Y. Rogers, and this is the podcast where we unravel the mysteries of folklore. And in this podcast, we explore folklore in all of its strangeness and beauty. Folklore, mythology, and ritual are the underpinnings of the world we live in today. Customs and rituals we often perform without questioning them, but they often have roots in ancient traditions. For example, did you know that candles on a birthday cake can be traced back to ancient Egypt, while the blowing out of the flames come from 18th century Germany? There are so many practices just like this, which we take part of, but we don't realize their history. And when we do, we have a stronger connection with our roots and our greater community. And that's really what this show is about. It's about following those threads to better understanding the fabric of our world and creating greater connections where those threads lead. So if that sounds like a podcast that you are interested in, make sure that you hit that subscribe button right now, whether that's on YouTube or whether you're listening on your preferred podcasting platform, so that you get the notifications every Tuesday when our new podcast drops. And if you are a longtime listener, please make sure that you're rating and you're reviewing our show. Hit those 5 stars and give us those reviews, because that helps other people find our show. And we have a really interesting, fascinating show for you today. It's a new topic that we're dealing with today, a graphic novel. So in today's show, we'll be talking with Fairlane Raymundo, the author of Aswang, which translates roughly to a monster, which is a graphic novel NFT inspired by Asian mythology and literature. Our guest, Fairlane Raymundo, was born in the Philippines but now resides in Los Angeles. She is an author, illustrator, and scriptwriter and marketer. She has a YouTube channel, Asian Entertainment and Culture, has served as a scriptwriter and producer for 7 full-length films. Fairlane has authored and illustrated 2 graphic novels, a cartoon series, and authored and edited 2 books, including the graphic novel, which we'll be speaking about today. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Vanessa, for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I'm really excited to have you on. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey to writing this graphic novel?
Sure. Aswang was actually a project that I started with my father, my late father. He is the illustrator in the family. So he really is very, very talented with his hand. That's actually how we sort of paid the bills. That's how he raised us. So when he was still alive, he and I sort of started. Um, I've been working in the industry, meaning the mainstream industry, for quite a while. And I've done a lot of projects with different people.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought at some point in my life, I'm like, I've done so many projects with different people, but I've never done one with my father. And he's the person who started it all. So I thought, well, maybe I should do something with him. So I started this with him. At that time, he's gone through 2 strokes. So actually 3, I think. So it wasn't the best kind of work that he had, but I didn't care. It was something more for me. Unfortunately, he passed away during the pandemic, so we weren't really able to finish it. But I thought, and so for a time, I really stopped because I felt like very emotionally attached to his work, his drawing, and I didn't want to continue it. Until one night, I actually literally dreamt of him scolding me and telling me that I should actually stop using him as an excuse for my laziness. Very much an Asian father, and he was like, "Just get off your behind and just do it." And I realized that my niece, whom I actually helped raising, I helped raise her. She was the one who was actually trained by my dad. She's very talented with her hand as well. So my dad mentored her very, very closely. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to continue this, I'm going to continue this with someone who can honor the legacy of my father, the sensitivities of his art. And so I asked her if she wanted to do it, and she was interested in doing it. Maybe at the back of her head, she was waiting for me to ask her. She just didn't want to impose.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah. So I felt like it was the right time. I was in the right headspace. So I decided to continue doing it. Yeah, so we were both a lover of mythology, Asian mythology. We love I love literature in general, but specifically, I find Asian mythology so rich, so dynamic, so prolific. So yeah, that's where it all started.
So growing up, you grow up in the Philippines, or were you just born there?
I grew up there. I was born and raised there. I moved here 10 years ago. When
Oh,
I was
okay.
there, yeah, so I also had like I started working there,
Mhm.
and then just decided to move here.
And so, do you feel like mythology is pretty strong in the Philippines? Is there a lot of it there?
Yeah. Oh, very, very, very strong. It's almost ingrained in our daily life.
Hmm.
There's so much, it all meshes together, the religion, tradition, the culture, mythology, literature. In our everyday life, there's a
Hmm.
lot of our ancient mythology that's ingrained.
Hmm.
For example, one of the characters that I'm actually featuring in this novel, Samuel is the name, who's actually named after my father. He is often mentioned in the daily life of the Filipinos. It's based on a biblical character.
Okay.
So he apparently in the ancient times he was believed to have been the one person who saw Jesus Christ on his journey to Golgotha,
Hmm.
and he was teasing Jesus Christ. So he was punished by Jesus to work the earth forever
Hmm.
until he comes again. So he was like, it was always ingrained in us. Don't do this to other people because you're gonna end up like Samuel Bilibit. You're gonna be every day. It's just we don't even notice it.
Yeah.
A lot of younger people nowadays wouldn't even know that it's ancient mythology or ancient tradition that they are hearing because it's just so everyday for us.
Now, in the Philippines, is it mostly Filipino mythology that you're hearing about, or are you also hearing about other mythologies from other Asian cultures that are nearby?
Yeah, yes, we are. So for some reason, I guess other Asian countries really loves us because they love us so much because they would often come to the Philippines. So as I think everyone would know, or at least most of your viewers would know, that we were actually colonized by the Spaniards for 300 years.
Hmm.
But before that, we have been trading with nearby neighbors like the Chinese. We've been trading with them for such a long time.
Hmm.
So the Chinese culture is very much ingrained in us as well, to a
Hmm.
point where I guess we don't even differentiate what is ours and what is theirs because it's been there for so long that
Hmm.
we're not even aware of it. From food to our language, it's just every day. So yeah, we're also influenced that highly. um just this is funny, like if you're in real estate in the Philippines,
Hmm.
one of the most in demand things that they would tell you is that you should always buy a house facing the east,
Interesting.
never the west. Yeah, because the lock of the sunrise, you should be facing that. If you're facing the west, then you're facing the sunset, which is unlucky.
Oh.
So yeah, so when I first bought my first house in the Philippines, that was one of the first things that my parents told me. It has to face the east. So maybe
so,
that's a tip for everybody else. And
so,
that's a Chinese belief, yeah.
so do a lot of houses actually face the east because of this belief?
Yeah, so I guess traditional like old Filipino families, and they would always choose something facing the east,
Hmm.
at the very least, at least on the side, but never facing the west. That's a rule. Like no matter how cheap that property is,
Yeah.
if it's facing the west, no Filipino will most likely get it.
So funny. Only foreigners. Only foreigners live in the houses that live facing the west, right?
Right, right.
Maybe the Spaniards who are the colonized there. What about the Spanish influences? Is there quite a bit of that?
Oh yeah. The primary religion in the Philippines is Catholicism. So that came
Hmm.
from the Spaniards. Before that, I think we were pagan. A huge part of the country were also Muslim. So those
Uh-huh.
were the two predominant faiths in the Philippines at that time. When they came, yeah, they converted everybody to Catholic. Not everybody, but a lot of people to
Right.
Catholicism. And a lot the language also, it's weird when I came here in the US, and here in LA there's a lot of Latinos.
Mm-hmm.
It was so weird to hear them talk because I would actually recognize some of the words. Like, oh, there's the influence, I guess. Yeah, and of course they changed our names. They required everybody to adapt a
Right.
Spanish last name. Yeah, so a lot of it, even our clothing, the siesta, we got that from them. A lot of their food we got from them. Yeah,
How fascinating. And
yeah.
I was once I met I've been to the Philippines actually. I've been to
Oh,
Manila and what was it? It was a very famous tourist island. It's where all the tourists go.
Boracay.
Yes, Boracay. That's
Okay.
where it was. And I was speaking to someone there, and he said he'd been to San Antonio, which is where I was from, and he loved it. But he said that everybody, because San Antonio is a very strong Hispanic community as well, everybody spoke Spanish to him because they just thought he was Mexican, and he was like, he was like, I don't speak Spanish, and they were like, what's wrong with you? And and so he said he loved the culture here, but it was very awkward because he was always having to explain he did not speak Spanish.
Well, I was actually asked several times actually when I moved here. People would ask me. I specifically remember this one group of people who asked me, "Are you a Latina or a Chinese?" And I'm like, "Those don't even come from the same continent."
Yeah.
That big fail. No.
That's too funny. Okay, so your father was your inspiration. Do you have a favorite mythological story growing up?
Uh, well, a lot. Yes, I do have a lot of favorite mythological stories growing up. One of which would be our own. It's called the Manananggal. It's actually featured in the comic book
Hmm.
that I have. Manananggal, or a viscera, is a monster that splits their body in half,
Okay.
horizontal. So it's up and down. Every full moon, they would split their body in half, and they're gonna go hunting for food. They grow wings
Uh-huh.
and they hunt for food. So it's usually a human being. It has to be an living human being, and that's what they would consume for food. In the Philippines, it is believed that Viseras, or the Manananggal, is actually a disease. It's not a curse. Well, I guess it's a curse of some sort, but it gets passed on to their heir. Once when they're ready to die, it gets passed on to their heir. And usually they are women. There is
Okay.
no known um, male manananggal. So they don't have any choice about this. They are considered demonic. So they're
Okay.
supposed to be evil. um, and they would hunt for, usually it's men that they would eat. It's a very feminist it's a very feminist mythology. Yeah, but I have never, one of the things that I've loved about it is the fact that I have never really discovered anything that resembles it in any part of the world. Actually, it's so unique,
Yeah. I mean, the
and
only
also
thing
very, very horrifying.
maybe like somewhat similar to like not Wolverine, uh the creature, the human that turns into a wolf. Why can't I think of that word?
Oh, yeah, wolves. Yeah.
Anyways, but they're often cursed or they're bitten and then they turn into a werewolf. That's the word. Sorry,
Yeah.
werewolf. And sometimes
Yeah.
in mythology, it's hereditary, but they obviously there's no like splitting of their body, but
Splitting in half.
their
Right.
body does do a transformation. Um,
Right. 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 Yeah, we do have werewolves as well in the Philippines.
uh-huh,
So it's very distinct. The
right.
only way, according to old people in the Philippines, the only way that you can actually kill a manananggal is if you can find the body while they're split in half. They actually leave their body behind, the lower part of their body,
Oh, okay.
somewhere.
It's like their torso. I was thinking like straight down the middle, but
No,
you're saying
horizontal.
okay. So their torso, so their legs are somewhere left somewhere, supposedly.
Yeah, they leave it somewhere very, very sacred and very, very safe.
Oh.
Now, so if you want to kill them, you're
Hmm.
going to have to find the lower body and actually pour either a holy water or salt
Okay.
all over their body. The
Mm-hmm.
thing is that usually you can't find it because they usually keep it very, very safe. Anything else you won't, you there's nothing will work. Just those two.
Interesting. And
Yeah.
so, and so, are
There's
people? Do people will they say like, oh, that's a Manananggal? How did you say
Manananggal.
Manan
Manananggal.
Manananggal?
Yeah.
Will they say, oh, watch out for them, or how do they come up
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
conversation?
Well, so there's a certain province in the Philippines. It's called Antique. If
Hmm.
you read it in English, it's just antique.
Okay.
But in the Philippines, we call it Antique. We pronounce it Antique, and they believe that that is where almost all the monsters in the Philippines reside. But they do, the difficult part is that they actually go and explore the entirety of the Philippines, so they do go out of that province and then they
Hmm.
try to live as normally as they can, and they're able to do so because the splitting of the body actually happens only once a month during the full moon.
Hmm.
So in for the rest of the days in the month, they're just normal people.
Hmm.
There is a they have a counterpart, um, the witches, the good witches of the Philippines. Mambabarang is what they call it.
Hmm.
So they are the ones who can actually detect who are the monsters or who are the aswangs in the Philippines, and they can identify a manananggal. So they can tell you like, oh, be careful of that person. That person is actually a witch or this or that or a manananggal. So they can identify that. But anybody can kill a manananggal for as long as you find the lower part of the body during the full moon.
And can if they don't feed during that full moon, do they die?
Yeah, well, not really, but they become weaker and weaker.
Okay.
So they said that if they can't find a human being to eat, then they can actually just settle for animals. That's what they would do.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, but it doesn't sort of nourishes them the same way a human being does.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How interesting.
Yeah,
Okay, so that was one of your favorites growing up.
yeah, that's one of my favorites growing up.
And so, who is the audience for your book? Is it for younger people, or is it for young adults, or for adults?
It is more for young adults.
Okay.
Of course, there's a lot of gore and violence in
Mm.
it, so
Mm-hmm.
I can't definitely not in my conscience will I be able to encourage kids to actually watch it. I
Mm-hmm.
am trying to develop the bigger vision for it is to actually develop the world of the monsters or the
Mm-hmm.
mythological characters in the metaverse,
Mm-hmm.
so that young kids can actually go in, interact with the monsters, ask them questions about where they came from, how do they live. So that part we can actually customize and make it more friendly to kids,
Mm-hmm.
and of course make it more interactive for everybody else. I think one of the things, the reason I made it an NFT comic book is that as much as I love reading, I know that a lot of people better appreciate something when they're interacting with it.
Mm-hmm.
So in the metaverse, they'll be able to, as close to touching the creature as possible. They'll be able to interact, go into their world. How does your house look like? Can I go in there? That's the bigger goal.
So it'll be like on a screen. I guess can we back up real quick because I'm not sure what an NFT stands for, and that was one of my questions I was going to ask you. I mean, I think I have some vague notion, but it's probably wrong. So,
Well, actually, technically, an NFT is a non fungible token. So it stands for anything. So I always say non fungible token. So tokens you can't punch. So a non fungible token is anything that is unique. You can't
okay,
copy. So, for example, the Mona Lisa, you can't copy that. There's only one Mona Lisa in the world. So it's actually a non fungible token.
okay,
Or you or me, we're both very unique. You can't recreate us. Hopefully,
yeah, right.
they can recreate
Maybe the next 10 years.
us. So that's very unique. Then they can't copy that. So what the NFT, it's just that in the digital world, what it allows people to do is to create sort of so when I create an art form, nobody else can reproduce it. It's
Okay.
there, one unique. Unless I create another one myself, then yeah, then that's another copy of it. Now it resides in, if you've ever played, I think the easiest way to imagine it and make it more concrete in your mind is if you've ever played any kind of video game
Mhm.
nowadays. Um, you see them on screen, and then on screen you can actually see their world. You can actually go inside their world.
Mhm.
Now, if you translate that in the metaverse, you will be you have a digital version of yourself that, and you are interacting with other creatures, other people in the metaverse. So
Mhm.
it's like a different universe, but it's a digital representation of you, very much like the movie Avatar,
Okay.
where they put in something else and then they have a digital version of themselves, and they have that their own universe there, something like that.
So your graphic novel is not a physical book; it's a digital book or a
It will
digital
also it will
video.
have a, yeah, it will also have a physical version, but we're
Okay.
going to limit it. So we'll have an initial run of 100 books, the actual physical book,
Okay.
and then we'll think about whether we're going to issue more, but that will be very limited, because the goal really is to push people to interact with the characters instead of just reading them.
And they would
Now
do it on
we
a
may
computer screen or like through a Kindle or what? How would they do
you
that?
actually need, so there will be a version where you can go into just your computer screen, will give you a website, you can go in there, but if you want the full metaverse experience, you actually need the eyeglasses, for you to, yeah, the glasses that you put on, so that
Uh-huh.
it feels like you're inside the universe.
Oh, wow. So is
Yeah,
are those like the virtual reality
yeah,
ones?
yeah, the VR glasses, yeah.
Oh,
Put
how
it on.
cool.
So that there's some, I am pretty sure that Meta, Facebook, actually now created like a default version of you. So for as long as you have a Facebook
Mhm.
account, you will have a metaverse character. Now eventually you can shape that character into whatever you want. Like for example, if I go in and I want to become a, a man,
Okay.
then I can just become a man. I can shape my identity the way that I want inside the metaverse.
Mhm.
um so yeah, that's the full experience if you buy the VR glasses, and then you'll go into the specific website, and then you get to interact with them. But that's where, that'll take time. The adoption is going to take time, so
Okay.
I guess having the physical book would be a good start.
Okay. So we'll start with the physical book and then it'll be in the meta world. Is that what metaverse?
Metaverse, yeah, the
Metaverse.
metaverse. Yeah, we're also planning on creating an animated series.
Okay.
The Filipinos are really really talented artists, and so if, depending on how things are gonna go, but we might do a series, a
So
TV
like
series
a
or
TV
online
series.
series. Yeah, yeah,
And do you know if it would be for adults or if it would be
young adults most likely. Yeah,
young
yeah,
adults?
yeah.
Because I
I don't
know
think kids might have nightmares looking at a man splitting in half.
very true. Very true. That's so funny. One of the things I was thinking about with graphic novels is I have a 7-year-old son and he loves for me to read to him and he loves audiobooks, but he at this point is still not wanting to read full books himself. I feel like
uh,
at this point he still really wants a lot of illustrations and a lot of pictures. So I've started to try and branch out and get him some graphic novels so that he has, something to easier to read. Although I
right,
don't know
right,
if he's actually reading those either at this point. He still mostly listens to audiobooks and wants me to read to him, but
right.
that might just be a little bit of laziness. But I'm trying.
What? How old is he?
He's 7.
Oh,
He's
okay, yeah.
he's 7.
Well, he'll get there. He'll get there.
Yeah, and he's also half his school is dual language, so he learns half in Spanish and half in English, and so he's learning to read in both languages. So he's not quite as strong, I think, as some people, some readers in English quite yet, or in
Okay,
Spanish because he's learning both at the same
right,
time.
right.
Okay, so let's let's get into the book. So when I
Okay.
was reading about Aswang, I read that it's kind of you translated it as a monster, but but I also read that it's kind of like a vampire. Is that
Well, one of the characters is actually a vampire.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot. Asia has a lot of different versions of vampires.
Oh, okay.
Some are actually a curse. Some they acquire it. And some is actually a disease, like in the Philippines, like the Manananggal vampires are actually, it's considered a disease that you get to pass on to other people.
Like
Usually
through
to
their
your kin.
bite, like a werewolf or like a vampire bite would do,
In
or
some, yeah, in some countries it's actually a bite, so if
Mhm.
you get bitten, then you become a vampire. And then in some it's just that if your parents are a vampire, then automatically you become a vampire.
Okay.
You don't have a choice in it. So there is a vampire character here, but it isn't one of the main characters.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's not for anything, but there's in each of the Asian countries, there's a lot of usually in the mainstream, there's a certain mythological character they have become known for more. So I've decided to choose that sort of that to represent that country, so that
Okay.
it's a little easier for people to relate to.
And how many Asian countries are there? Do you know the like
There's more than 40.
Okay.
There's more than 40 countries. Yeah.
And are
So
you trying to
it's
represent all of them?
I'm trying.
That's hard.
Some are
That's a tall order.
I'm trying that. It's very, very hard. There's a lot of countries that, I guess the number one difficulty, the number one barrier is really the language.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Asian countries are very proud of their language. They refuse to speak any other kind of language. It's like, if you want to communicate with us, you're going to learn our own, and I commend them for it. Like,
Yes, keep
yes.
those languages alive.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead, you should do that. The problem is that I can't learn all
Right.
languages, and I'm struggling with two as it is. Learning 40 is a very, very tall order for me. What's
Yeah.
helping though is the YouTube channel, because then when I feature a certain something about a country, a lot of the people in those countries would actually comment. They'll come forward,
Oh, that's great.
they'll clarify. Yeah, they'll clarify, they'll correct some of the things that I say. If I said something wrong, they'll add to it if they feel like it. And because they know that I don't speak their language, they try to communicate with me in English, which I love, because they are the ones that are making an effort. As
Hmm.
I've said, I try, but
Yeah.
it's just really so hard. Yeah, so all 40 countries I'm trying to represent, and then but it's really based on what I can get that is written in English.
Right. Yeah, one of my goals for this podcast is to have a topic that touches every single country in the world. But that we also have a similar problem because not everyone speaks English, right?
Right,
And
right,
not everything is translatable or someone is able to translate it that has a folklore lens. So
right.
we had a guest on that the episode hasn't aired yet, but he talks about Lithuanian supernatural creatures, and he said that there's really no one else. He was one of the only people who was looking at folklore and was able to translate from Lithuanian to English, and that's a common issue, I think, when we're trying to cover all these different countries, but
Right. And it's
language
such
is
a
a
yeah, it's such a waste, because when I was doing my research, there's a lot of the characters that are in our mythology and our literature, I actually also find in other countries.
Mhm.
They're not necessarily the same name. Some things will change, but it's
Right.
essentially the same. So I'm like, if only there's a way for one day for all these people to come together and just talk about and identify, like, oh, this is something common to everybody,
Yeah.
something common, like the Maju. One of the characters in the comic book, a Maju, is actually a witch in Japan. And then when
Okay.
I was reading a history in the history of the Maju, I realized that they were actually also derived from China, and then South Korea also
Hmm.
has their own version. And we have our own version, which is the Mambabarang, which I discussed earlier.
Oh,
So I'm like, okay, so these are all, we have this in common.
yeah.
And instead of just talking about our division, why not talk about something fun and
Yeah.
educational? But yeah, it's
Absolutely.
just that the languages, and some in many Asian countries too, they have multiple languages. In the Philippines, we have 880 ethno-linguistic groups.
That's right, because
So
you have, how many islands are there in the Philippines?
yeah, more than 7,000 islands. Yeah.
Right.
7,100 islands, more than. So if I drive like 5 hours north or 5 hours south, they'll
Uh-huh.
be speaking a totally different language.
Right.
I won't be able to understand them. And it's so funny that sometimes the one thing that we have in common is English.
Right.
Like if it's hopeless that they don't understand me, I don't understand them, I'm like, can we just talk in English? Maybe we can understand each other.
How funny. All right,
Yeah.
so tell us the story of Aswang. Give us the premise.
Okay. So there's actually five main characters, and
Okay.
all of them are monsters, or they came from. As far as some of them actually don't know, but they came from some of the most powerful clans of monsters in Asia. However, these are the black sheeps of the family, so they're actually bad at being monsters. And so their family were so frustrated at them not knowing how to become a monster that they were ostracized by the family, kicked out
Mm.
of by the family, and they were like, "Don't come back until you get hold of your power and become a total aswang." So they were homeless, desperate. They didn't know what to do. They came across this sign, sort of recruiting students for a special school with special abilities. And if they
Have
get
they all
in,
met together? How have
yeah,
they all
they've
met
met
together?
together. So two of them are friends, and then the other two, they just met the other two.
Okay.
So they just came across each other, and once they so they the but the one thing that attracted to them in that school is that they're going to be provided food and shelter.
Okay.
So it's like we have special skills. They're like, well, we have special skills and we need food and shelter. So let's just go and try. And
Mhm.
since they have power, they went in. They were able to go in, but it was actually sort of a freak of nature, or at least that's what they think.
Mhm.
It was all luck because the registrar, the person, the admission office, during they came in at the last minute of the last day of recruitment, so there was only one person there, and this girl is actually the fifth main character in the novel, and she's the only girl in the group. And she was like so bored and also so pissed that at the last minute four guys came in, because she was like, I'm almost done and you're here. So she just like, okay, whatever, I'm just gonna accept you. So she accepted everybody else, and as far as they know in the beginning of the story, she's just a mortal.
Oh,
So
okay.
she accepted everybody, and much to the dismay of the head of the school, when they learned that they aren't actually like really superheroes. They later on learned that this is actually a school for superheroes,
Oh.
and yeah, which is odd because they're like, well, we're monsters. We're supposed to be the monsters that you're fighting.
Mhm.
Now we need to become superheroes.
Yeah.
So yeah, so because they were sort of the black sheep also of the school, the head of the school just put them under the care of the girl. Her name is Marian, the girl that got them in, that recruited them. So they're like, well, we can't kick them out. They already know our secret. So it's now your responsibility. Just make sure that they don't cause any trouble. So that's where it begins. Now they're forced to tap into their power, to harness their power. And Marian just kept on pushing them because it's her pride, because she was the one who recruited them in. She was like, no, you're going to become great at your powers. She later on learned, oh God, you're not superheroes, you're monsters. And now you're going to have to. So that's where their adventure begins. It's
And are
very
they on Earth?
lighthearted. They are on Earth, but it's a fictional place.
Okay.
Yeah. I will be using a lot of my. I love traveling, and there's a
Mm.
lot of places in the U.S. and a lot of places in other Asian countries that I really love.
Mm.
So I sort of combined all of those together to create like this one place that I hope people will sort of recognize,
Mm-hmm.
but not totally know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so it's a fictional place.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the characters and how what their mythological origins are.
Sure.
Do you want to just choose one?
Yeah, yes, sure. So the five main characters is so one is Gust. It's based on a Korean mythological character called Gumiho, which is a nine-tailed fox. In their mythology, it is said that it's actually inspired by another Japanese mythological character and also a Chinese mythological character.
Mm-hmm.
So usually a nine-tailed fox can transform itself. It can shapeshift, usually to a beautiful woman.
Oh.
Yeah. So and then they try to suck out the essence of a human being by kissing the guy.
Okay.
How yeah. However, as they get more and more of the beings that they kiss, then they become more and more powerful. That they're actually able to transform themselves into different creatures. What's interesting is that based on some of the interviews that I have done, they said that in the beginning, Gumiho was actually a good being. It's a good character in their mythology.
Mm-hmm.
They're not quite sure when it started. They started portraying Gumihos as evil.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, they were actually helping human beings, and then they just became evil. And none of them know when that started.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always when they are in their human form, there's always something fox-like in their character. So it could be the ears, or it could be the nose, or something like that.
Mm.
Now, as they become more powerful, then they lose those fox-like features. Now, that's the
Okay.
Gumiho. There's been a lot of TV shows, TV dramas in Korea that actually features a nine-tailed fox or a Gumiho.
Okay.
In my comic book, instead of a girl, he is a guy, and his name is Gust.
Okay. And why did you decide to make him a guy?
Um, w- this is also another interesting thing. Many of the interesting characters in Asian mythology are actually women.
Hmm.
So, like the Manananggal, they're all women. The Gumiho they usually transform to a woman. So, I'm like, why is that?
Yeah.
And I think there's so much like female power going on in in Asia, and
Yeah.
so so I thought like um for me to be able to explore and explain the the I guess the deeper humanity of these characters, I have to put it in a point of view of a stranger.
Mhm.
Because if we're women, it's so natural for us to understand how powerful we can be,
Mhm.
how vicious we can be, right?
Mhm.
But it's different from the point of view of a man
Mhm.
because it's totally strange to them. So I felt like maybe I can have a guy look at it from his point of view, so that they can fully explore it from objectively. So
Mhm.
that's one. Um, so yeah, that's Gus. That's a Gumiho. The next one is Min, who's a Maju. In Japan, a Maju actually literally means a witch.
Okay.
So as far as I understand, if I'm correct, based on my interviews, Ma is actually evil, and Ju is a girl. So if you put it
Evil girl.
together, girl, yeah. But again, they can't quite explain it why it just became why they associated evil girl to a witch. So it's just a word that they grew up saying, so they're not
Mhm.
quite sure how it started that way. But Min is actually a descendant of an actual Japanese wizard, whose name is Abeno Seimei. And he's a real person. He actually lived in Japan during the Edo period, which was like 1600 to 1800.
Mhm.
Um, Apparently, in those times, there is actually a government department that deals with natural science, astronomy, divination, and magic.
And you said the
During
1600s?
yeah, the 1600, the Edo period, 1600 and 1800. So
Wow.
there is a system, there's a government division that actually deals with that, natural science, astronomy, divination, and magic. So at first it was like an independent thing. Eventually it grew and it grew and it grew, that the government decided they were going to put them under that. Now Abeno Seimei is one of the most powerful. Uh, they call it the sorry, I have to read it. Uh, Anmyodo. They call
Okay.
it the Anmyodo. Those are the. So it was one of the most powerful, um, and he the character in my comic book descended from him. So, but he didn't know that he was a descendant. So they have there the Abeno Seimei is often compared to Merlin,
Oh,
the most
okay.
powerful. Yeah, he's almost always compared to Merlin. That's how powerful he is. He's like, um, he can do almost godlike things. That's how
Mm,
powerful. So, but then when he died, so he was so respected that when he died, the emperor of Japan at that time actually had a monument in his honor. So he is a real human being.
yeah.
But then he has been in so many literature, in so many movies, in so many artworks that people have now confused which is real and which is not.
Right.
Like which part? Like,
Mm.
that's how he is so deeply ingrained in their culture that they've like, "Oh, I don't care which is true or which is not. I just
Right.
know him. He is very much respected." Yeah. So Min is actually a descendant of this guy, although Min didn't know. And also he hates being a witch because it's so identified with evil that he felt like, I don't even want to tap into it, because I'm not an evil person.
Hmm.
And he is actually in the comic book the sweetest of the group. It's
Mm.
like he can't kill a fly. He's that character. The next one is Can, which is a medium
Okay.
in China. So they have the ability to talk to spirits. Kan, however, this is gonna sound so odd. I actually named him after my favorite Indian actor. Irfan.
That's funny.
My favorite Indian actor is Irfan Khan, one of the best actors of all time, in my opinion. So he was actually a Shaolin trainee. I'm sure that if you go on YouTube and Twitter, you're going to see a lot of amazing things that a Shaolin can actually do.
So
Almost like
is it
they defeat.
when I looked up Shaolin, I was unclear if it was a monk or if it was
It
like a
is
part of Kung Fu.
they are monks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they are monks. And then they practice kung fu, but they go beyond it. Like they really defy things that you just almost almost like superman like in the things that they do. It entails a lot of discipline. They do it from when they're kids until they grow up. So he was a Shaolin trainee. um, he was actually he doesn't know who his parents were, so he just grew up in the temple. Now
Mm,
they are monks, and Shaolins are actually considered respected. They're supposed to be good in
mhm,
China, until one day he was possessed by a spirit, by an evil spirit.
mhm.
So he was ostracized by the temple because they were like, you're not supposed to do the things that you did because you're supposed to be good. And was trying to explain to them, I did not know what happened. At
Yeah.
first he wasn't aware that he was a medium and that he was being possessed by the evil spirit. So there's a little that's the battle that he has to fight, because when he talks to spirits, he doesn't have the power to command whether it's a good spirit or a bad spirit that will talk to
Mm,
him. He just talks to everybody, and they come to him, so it's not his choice. It's
mhm,
They come to him when they want to come to him. Now apparently in China, there's a difference between a shaman and a medium. So if you're a medium, you're sort of under the control of the spirits. But if
Uh-huh.
you're a shaman, you actually, or a healer, you're actually the one that's destroying the bad spirits. So you can command them. So
Oh.
those are the main difference. Yeah. So one, you're just getting possessed or talking to them, and then the other one, you can destroy them.
Can you become a shaman from being a medium?
I have never heard of any literature that anybody who managed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But there are shamans that naturally are able to talk to spirits.
Mm-hmm.
So they said it's because of that. When you're a medium, your nature is to submit to the spirits, so they can
Mm-hmm.
talk to you whenever they want to. I
Mm-hmm.
actually wrote a horror story, a horror movie in the Philippines, and I was we spent a night in what they call the haunted house in the Philippines, and the name of the movie is actually Haunted House. So we
Mm-hmm.
had a medium there with us for before they left us to sleep in the haunted house for the night, all the writers. And one of the things that they
For the listeners who don't see my face, it's a scared face.
so when I was talking to the medium, he was like, "Oh, they are, some of the evil spirits are evil because they don't like getting disturbed. So when they set up shop, like if they say this is my home and you invade their home, they all they're trying to do is get you out, not really
Mm.
harm you. You
Mm-hmm.
leave their place, then they leave you alone, something like that. And also the other thing is that they said that they spirits actually have their own economy in their dimension, in their own world. So that's why you can actually bribe them. That's what he said. Like, oh, you can
You've
bribe them. You can pay them to do something.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
never thought of bribing a ghost.
So that's something that the character in the comic book will actually do. He would actually bribe spirits to do things for him.
Yeah.
So to a certain degree, he doesn't really have an innate power in him,
Uh-huh.
except that he has the ability to communicate with ghosts and with spirits. So that's something that he needs to tap into. Like he needs to embrace the fact, because he has always wanted to be a Shaolin, and
Mm-hmm.
he, so that's like, okay, you can't be a Shaolin, at least not fully. Then at least you need to at least you need to embrace this part of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is actually our own, which is a Visera or a Manananggal, Pablo. His name is Pablo, and I actually like pattern. I like using real people as a model of my character.
Mm-hmm.
So often, yeah, I steal people's lives. um, so like if I meet an interesting person, or at least I hear of an interesting person, I would usually use them as a character in my novel.
Okay.
Pablo is actually the leader of the biggest boy band in the Philippines. His name is Pablo, and the boy band is called SB19. So if he hears this, I'm so sorry, but I used you as so he's a Manananggal, and the primary reason he was actually ostracized and kicked out of the family is that he is a boy. Because no Manananggal are supposed to be women. There's no Manananggal that's a boy. So at a very young age, the family was just like, nope, you're not. No, you're
Yeah.
not one of us. So they kicked him out. And then the other aspect of it is that he really hates being a Manananggal. He
Mm-hmm.
hates harming people because he's very, very kind. So he's actually a vegetarian. So
Oh.
he,
It's
so,
a
yeah,
difficult thing for
that's
his
very difficult.
species.
So he's perpetually hungry. He's
Mm.
perpetually hungry. But the thing about it is that because he doesn't fully embrace who he is, then he also doesn't become. He's also a very weak, like physically weak person.
Mm-hmm.
Because the only way they can truly find nourishment is if they eat a human being, which
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't want to do. So he's kind of a weak person. Yeah, so his name is Pablo. So to the SB19 Pablo, he's really a good singer. He's a good songwriter. But I'm sorry, I used you as a character.
Now, can they eat like would they not get the same nourishment if they ate a cadaver or like someone who is freshly dead, but they didn't necessarily do the killing,
No,
or
they have to do the killing.
they have to do the killing?
Yeah, and they have to do the killing. So he's really in a tight conundrum. Now
Yeah.
the fifth character is Marian. The That was actually named after my niece, was actually the illustrator of this graphic novel.
Oh, how wonderful.
She's from yeah, she's from Thailand. As far as the four boys know, she's just a human being.
Mm-hmm.
But she can handle them, she can command them, she can bully them, she can make them do anything that she wants. She's just a strong-willed woman, who's a master of all martial arts, very very smart.
Mm-hmm.
And so she kinds of guide them in how to become great at what they do. So he sort of puts a direction to their lives, basically. So from being people who are just there to eat and to have a place to sleep, they actually become very good at what they do. So those are the five main characters. Another major character in the story is actually Samuel, which I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on a biblical character, or at least a religious character, that's
Mm-hmm.
called um, Samuel Belibith, I think is the name of um, the original character, or Ahasvesus. Ahasvesus, I think, is the Greek name. He was in the Bible, or at least in the religious story, when Jesus Christ was going to Golgotha. Samuel saw him and he was teasing Jesus Christ. It's like, oh, why are you stopping? You're lazy. Go ahead, walk and whatever. So he was teasing Jesus Christ. And I guess Jesus Christ got pissed and was like, okay, I'm gonna go on walking and you're going to stay there and you're going to wait for me until I return. So, and so tales have it that he's still walking to
Oh.
this day, waiting for yeah, waiting for the second coming.
Oh,
So
wow.
I based it on his character in the comic book. However, because there was a there, when Lucifer fell from hell, this is based on the comic book
Mm-hmm.
that I'm writing. When Lucifer fell from hell, he of course devastated the community. Samuel was just a farmer. He's just a mortal. He's a
Mm-hmm.
farmer. And when Lucifer fell from her and devastated the community where Samuel was living, it was like, you can't do this to me because this is my living, this is my people. And so
Mm-hmm.
he battled Lucifer
Okay.
one on one. So the battle lasted 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then after that, they just disappeared. They went into the forest, and that's where they battled. And then they disappeared. Nobody knew what happened.
Mm-hmm.
After 7 days, Samuel reappeared from the forest,
Mm-hmm.
and Lucifer was nowhere in sight. But Samuel at this time just did not talk. So he went about his daily life. He would farm. He would, whatever. He just
Mm-hmm.
lived, but he wouldn't talk. And so people would ask him like, "Where is Lucifer?" And he just will not never answer. After 77 years, he left and no one knows where he is. So there were like talks that they actually came into an agreement. Lucifer and Samuel came into an agreement, a
Mm-hmm.
deadlock basically, and they came into an agreement that Lucifer will take on the body of Samuel. So all this while, Samuel and Lucifer were actually in one body, and then and
Oh.
then yeah. So those were like, there were talks about rumors about that, but no one really can confirm because he never really talked.
Mm-hmm.
So and then there were other things, other theories, like other rumors that, oh, Samuel actually um they actually reached a deadlock, and Samuel said that, let me reign for 77 years in peace, like leave us alone for 77 years in peace, and then after that I will leave and I will give you 77 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So he's my favorite character because he's based on my father.
Right. So you based the personality of your father.
Yeah, yeah, of my father. Some of the habits, the things, his temperament. My father is
Mm-hmm.
not much of a talker,
Mm-hmm.
but he's a very strong. He's not a farmer, but he is very very good with, maybe he could have been had we not lived in the city, because he's very good with plants and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he the features I tried to get as much of my father on him. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a lovely representation for him.
and then and then I think the last one that's my favorite is actually Tatang. In he's a hermit or an ermitaño. So he's a recluse. He lives in the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
There's a belief in Asia where people who live in the mountain actually have some sort of a special relationship with the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure if you've trekked any kind of mountain, you'd know that there are some people who actually live in the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Tatang, there's a mountain in the Philippines. It's called the Mount Pinatubo, and it has been dormant for about 500 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just erupted out of nowhere. Like
Oh
they were
wow.
very they only knew about it like days before the actual eruption. So everyone was like it devastated the entire province. For years no one could live in the province because it was just dead.
Yeah.
Everything was covered in ashes. Now after the eruption, when people started going back to the province, they learned that Tatang is still there. So it seemed that he never actually evacuated the area, and there was so this is in the comic book already. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a rumor that what happened was that the Tatang was actually he was actually an immortal, and that he was a wizard, or at least he was studying wizardry
Mm-hmm.
under Lilith. So for those who are following like the biblical Old Testament, the first wife of Abraham was actually Lilith.
Right.
Yeah, and then she was like she was thrown into the land of Nod,
Mm-hmm.
where she in the some fictional books she developed like supernatural powers. She
Mm-hmm.
became a witch, like a really powerful witch. Now apparently Tatang was a student of Lilith, but eventually when Tatang learned that she was actually evil, he fought her.
Okay.
And eventually managed to sort of put her underground, and she put her under Pinatubo, the mountain, the volcano that erupted.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so for thousands and thousands of years it was dormant, and the reason he never left Pinatubo was that he was guarding Lilith. He wanted to make sure that he's never going to get out of it. So
Mm-hmm.
that she was never going to get out of the ground, but when it erupted, it was actually Lilith trying to get out. And so he
Oh.
battled Lilith. Yeah, he battled Lilith, and then after several days, he managed to put her down again underground. And so when they came back, that's true that he never left, because it was actually a battle between Lilith and Tatang. So those
Mm-hmm.
are some of my favorite characters. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly making me want to read the book and, or put on my VR goggles and and interact with the characters.
Yeah.
So before we let you go, I do want to have you talk a little bit about your YouTube channel.
Sure. Well, so I started Asian entertainment and culture just because I really want to share Asian culture and our art, our entertainment industry. I think it's one of the most vibrant in the world. It's so different. Each country has their own aesthetics. We have our own sound,
Mm-hmm.
very very distinct, especially the ethnic ones. And even in our culture, everyone is so distinct, even in our beliefs. So that was just like, so I usually spend time in the channel just sharing to
Mm-hmm.
people about other Asian countries. My target market basically is anybody who wants to learn anything about the Asian culture and
Mm-hmm.
entertainment. So it could also be other Asians wanting to know more about other Asian countries.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I do. I do, if there's anybody who wants to go on the show, they want to talk about Asian culture, they want to ask questions, I get them on the show. Yeah, so if I hope that everybody could visit. It's a vibrant community. People are really participating, talking, sharing their ideas. And the goal is to eventually create like a media company that's
Mm-hmm.
focused on Asian entertainment and culture.
And are they live shows? Do people like come on and do questions and answers, or how do you do it?
Yeah, right now we do no. It's right now everything is pre-recorded. We
Okay.
will eventually start a Saturday morning show, which is going to be live. So most likely in the beginning, it's just going to be me, and then have people live on the show. Yeah,
Cool. And so you'll bring on guests. So like right now, you're just kind of talking about things that you're researching and that you find really fascinating, or
yeah.
you watch a show and you. Uh,
React to it. Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
I do have guests. Sometimes I interview people. Last Saturday, I aired an interview with a girl who's now teaching in a woman, a beautiful one. She's now teaching in Vietnam, so she shared her experience in Vietnam, how she actually found a job, which
Mm-hmm.
was very interesting, and the kind of life, just like comparing the. I think one of the most favorite questions and most a lot of people are interested in is just like the cost of living in Vietnam versus the
Mm-hmm.
US or
Mm-hmm.
versus their home country.
Mm-hmm.
It was so surprising to me. Even their culture, like she said, oh, they know Taylor Swift, they don't know Beyonce. I'm like, what?
I'm surprised they know Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I thought that if you know Taylor Swift, you would know Beyonce because they're like
Mm-hmm.
both pop and both popular. But things like that. How safe it is because I asked her everyone because everyone sort of uses the motorbike there for
Mm-hmm.
transportation, and she said that they don't even lock it. Like if they go to a mall, so they park it, they just park it, they don't lock it. There's
Interesting.
no
And they
yeah,
don't feel
because
like
they
there's a lot of theft.
yeah, no theft, and she says it's a very safe place to live in. I'm like, do that in LA, it's gone in like 10 seconds. What do you mean you
Wow.
don't lock yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So
So
shoot,
next
shoot.
time I'm going to have the I think the yeah, I'm going to have some music producers on the show because a lot
Mhm.
of my audience are interested in how different it is for Asian artists who want to come on the US, how different things are going to be, stuff like that. Yeah.
Mhm. Or like Asian artists who maybe want to come over to like make a name for themselves in the
Yeah.
US.
Yeah. Or maybe just an Asian artist who just wants to share their art. I do that too. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds really cool. We will definitely check that out, and I'll make sure that we put a link, and we'll put a link up for everything that we've mentioned today. Um, our website is www.fabricoffolklore.com, and that's where all the links from today's show will be. And also, I wanted to ask you, uh, your father's work. Do you have like links that we could put up for that as well? Since you said
Um,
he was an illustrator and he did quite a
yeah.
bit of work.
Yeah, I'm still in the process of gathering everything. I'll put it in one website. But yes, I do have some. Most
Mm-hmm.
likely they'll find it. I send you another link. It's madsoul.asylum.com.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be putting some links on that. Some of his works on that. He was really more into commercial, like mainstream kind of art.
Oh, uh-huh.
He needed to pay the bills. So, he had
Right.
two children, so
You
he
gotta do what
couldn't
you gotta do.
yeah. But he left behind some stuff that I was very lucky to be able to save all of them or some of
Mm,
them, not all of them. So I'll be
mhm.
putting them online. Yeah, some of the it's fun because apparently even my own grandfather, whom I never met, was actually a student of an American artist, and so I have his book that
Oh,
he would
wow.
yeah so he would illustrate on the book, send the entire book back to the US so that the instructor could put his comments, mail the entire book again to my grandfather. So they did that for years, back and forth, that same book.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
How much
When
do
I
they
discovered,
pay in
I don't know.
shipping fees?
When I learned of that, I was like, what? Oh my god. But yeah, I have that book and I'll put that on the website as well.
Oh, that's amazing. Yes, please do.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us. This was just so fascinating, and we haven't had very many Asian guests, and I do really want to expand more to Asia as well. And so this is it's just fantastic that you agreed to come on.
Yeah, yeah, I will definitely promote this to my subscribers and my followers. So as soon as it's ready, just let me know, and I'll ask them to check it out.
Fantastic. And thank you, folksy folks, for joining us on our mythological graphic NFT journey today. Do you know much about Asian mythology or graphic novel NFTs? What did you learn today? We have a Facebook community group page where we continue the conversation, where we encourage our audience members to engage with one another and talk about what they learned about on the show today. So we want to hear from you today. We want to hear from you on that Facebook community page. And as always, if you enjoyed the show, make sure you're subscribing, liking, commenting on YouTube, or if you're listening on your podcast platforms as well. And rating and reviewing the show is absolutely one of the most helpful things if you want to help our show, giving us those stars and reviews. So thank you so much for unraveling the mysteries of folklore with us. I'm Vanessa Y. Rogers, and until next time, keep the folk alive.